Accelerating through the next herd made Martha giggle. Then something caught her eye and made her jam on the brakes. Her tires squealed and the rear end wobbled as she screeched to a stop. Parked there on the side of the road was an old red pickup truck. The rear passenger side was up on a jack. There was a man lying face down next to the jack. She pulled her car behind the pickup and jumped out. "Are you okay?" she said, rushing forward. The man didn't move as she knelt down next to him. She knew immediately that something was strange when she touched him. There was no warmth in his body, but he felt more like a stuffed animal than a dead person. Her hand recoiled. A sick feeling in her stomach swelled as she slowly retreated from the body, only then noticing the absence of exposed skin and the unnatural curve to his elbows. A dummy, she thought to herself as she backed away. Who would play such a cruel joke? The answer she did not want came suddenly as a strong arm draped across her from behind, clamping her against someone who was much taller and much stronger than she. "Thanks for stopping, darling," said a deep voice that made her shudder. He just laughed and tightened his grip, lifting her off her feet as if she were just a rag doll. She wasn't strong enough to loosen his grip, so she dug at his forearm with her nails. His denim jacket repelled her efforts to claw at him as easily as his strength had repelled her efforts to wiggle free. "Help me," she screamed as he began lugging her into the woods. She went quiet as her terror sank into something well beyond panic. As he walked, he carried her on his left hip, still using only his left arm to subdue her. Then he stopped suddenly and slung her to the ground. She was jolted as she landed on her tailbone. "Why are you doing this?" she pleaded. "I'm a lion," he said. "You're a lamb." He retrieved his cell from his back pocket. "It stinks for you, but that's the way it is." He placed his right foot on her left arm, pinning her to the ground while he typed something on his phone. "He's talking, that's good," she said to herself. "Talk to him, make him see you as a person." She wasn't sure where in her memory that strategy came from, but there were no other options. "I'm Martha," she said. "Martha Bonhoeffer." He watched her talk, but his expression didn't change. He pressed his foot harder on her arm. "I have a daughter named Mary and a grandson named Frankie." He kept watching expressionlessly as he put his phone away. "I'm a librarian," her voice trembled. "Actually, I was a librarian and now I'm retired." She swallowed hard. "I'm a retired librarian." "You are a lamb," he said flatly. He bent down beside her head and tried to grab a handful of her hair. She pushed at his hands and he easily gathered her wrist and clamped them together in his huge right hand. Then he reached for her hair again. Once he had a firm grip of her hair, he let go of her wrist. Standing, he just lifted her halfway up his leg. "Please don't do this," she blubbered as she struggled. "I was trying to help you. How could you do this to me?" "I was trying to help you." She was sobbing so hard that she could no longer see she was being dragged along the road. Her head banged against his knee when he stopped abruptly. He lowered her to a seating position, and then he went rigid. Mother wondered if he had heard something. She couldn't see anything. Fear stopped her from crying out for help again. She wiped her tears from her face, and that's when she saw the wolf standing at the edge of the clearing directly in front of them. The biggest wolf she had ever seen. It was all white, and it just stared at them. Once she could focus again, Martha noticed that the wolf's eyes were fixated on the man standing behind and above her. The man slid his hands under her arms and lifted her up, holding her between him and the wolf. Coward, she thought. She nearly jumped out of her skin when she heard a high-pitched growl behind them. The man swung around so that the two wolves were now on either side of them. The first wolf was still standing in the same place at the edge of the clearing to her left. The second was on her right. Martha felt the man's grip tighten as a third and fourth wolf emerged from the underbrush in front of them. Pushing her forward, he began creeping backwards. Everything was happening in slow motion now. She noticed that none of the wolves were baring their teeth, which would have been a sign of aggression. She also noticed that none of them were paying her any mind at all. Standing perfectly still, she gathered her arms around her. Now there were 6 wolves, 3 sets of pairs, and the man was backing away. Without so much as a glance at her, the wolves directly in front of her moved past her. And once they were beyond her, she began making her way towards the road. "Hey," her assailant called out to her. "Aren't you going to help me?" She looked back over her shoulder. The man in the middle of the clearing, completely surrounded by what were now 4 pairs of wolves. The wolves were all in wider stances, heads bent forward, their back hair standing on end, all clear signs of aggression. "I don't know what to do," he begged her. He looked as pitiful as anyone Martha had ever seen. She felt sorry for him until she remembered, and then she turned away, saying, "Tell them you're a lion."